Okay, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. My name is Whitney Norton. I'm a graduate of the Abbey, and I am also a member of the advisory board of the nursing school. And we're privileged tonight to have Michelle Mathis with us from Olive Branch Ministries, who coordinate tonight's program. In the past, we worked on prevention. Tonight, we're going to talk about maintenance and recovery. And I think there's a huge opportunity for all of you here in this nursing program to not only be yourself, but to engage with other people and spread the star power that you're developing so that if a friend needs it, you're there. And what I always talk about, that we spoke about last year, was mind, body, soul. You're like the trees that stand out in the lane here. They're tall, they're shady, but that gives them huge roots. And we're hoping the roots of the Benedictine tradition push you forward. Thank you very much for being here, and I'll pass it on to Ms. Mathis.
Good evening. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Belmont Abbey, and everyone who's come out to support us this evening. As Whitney said, last year we talked about prevention. In the years past, we've talked about prevention. And when we gathered, Whitney and Bill and I, to talk initially about what this year's event would look like, I said, we've got to do something different. Things have to change in Gaston County. And we can talk about prevention all day long when it comes to substance use and even things like folks being unhoused and mental health. We can talk prevention, but unless we know where we're missing the gaps, right? Where we're missing providing services, then we're doing ourselves an injustice. So tonight we're going to address some of those things. We're going to talk about, yes, what we're doing, but also where we need to do better, right? As providers, as community members, as allies, so that we can support the people that we are serving. So with that in mind, the first thing we're going to do this evening is I'm going to bring up Dane Mullis from McLeod Centers of Wellbeing. Dane has a long history in working with disability rights and recently went to work at McLeod and is a program manager, correct, at McLeod. And I'm going to let him talk about the current state of Gaston County.
Hello, I'm Dane Mullis. I'm a licensed social worker and addiction specialist, and I do a lot of work in harm reduction outside of my job. I was asked to fill in for somebody, so I'm not as familiar with Gaston County. I can easily go over this data, but I'm more in Mecklenburg, so bear with me. You can go to the next slide. So these are just notes from 2025 from the Gaston County Controlled Substances Coalition. Substance Use Coalition. It's confusing, it was Charlotte's. So this first chart is just showing the number of people prescribed opioids in Gaston County. So we've seen a reduction in that, just like we have overall in North Carolina. I'm gonna probably move these quickly. I was told I have 5 minutes. You can go to the next one. So these are wait, I think you might have skipped one. Oh, that's it, yep. So this is the rate of emergency or ED visits throughout Gaston County per 100,000 people. So they began the year with a lot of emergency room overdoses. Let's see, there's been a steady increase until 2023, and we saw our first reduction in 2024. And I believe they're expecting another reduction for 2025. Next slide. So this chart shows overdoses per 100,000 people in Gaston County. So Gaston County consistently does experience more overdoses than the averages around the state. And I would say this is likely due to a lack of resources compared to bigger counties with more resources like Mecklenburg and others. Next. So they have among the highest rates for children in foster care due to parental substance use. And again, I think this is also related to lack of resources. And while in Mecklenburg County, we have some of the lowest rates, an abundance of resources for child care. Next. So the police department, these are the number of victims, not reports. So some reports actually have multiple victims, but this chart shows by month the reported overdoses for Gaston County, and it differentiates them from, so the black will be overdoses that resulted in death, and then the remaining are ones that were reversed. So this is showing that we're having a lower rate of death related to overdose. We're saving more lives, essentially. And that has to do with naloxone saturation, for sure. And then the next slide is a heat map for Gaston County, showing where we're seeing the overdoses mostly in Gaston County. And then the one after that. So year by year, we've seen a steady decrease. Last year was the first year we saw a major decrease in overdose numbers. That was pretty consistent everywhere. And this year, we're actually expected to see another decrease, not as large, but still significant, about 25% for last year. Sorry, not this year. And then the last slide is regarding outreach. So harm reduction, where we're getting kits into the people who use drugs, the people that need them. So these are the kits that are distributed to Gaston County Public Health, or at Gaston County Public Health, sorry, local businesses and other events. And these kits typically contain fentanyl test strips, xylazine test strips for adulterants in the supply, and then also we give everyone naloxone. And I think that's it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Dane. I know that was short notice, and I appreciate you stepping in for Catherine. So we've seen a decrease in overdoses in Gaston County in the last couple of years, and that's a really important thing. Dane mentioned naloxone saturation, Narcan saturation, and that is super important. One of the things also that we know is that there's a change in the drug supply here, in the illicit supply. And as future healthcare providers, that's something that you need to stay tapped into and be aware that there's multiple reasons why overdoses are decreasing. Certainly we are doing a better job of getting naloxone into the community, and Leslie will talk more about that here in just a little bit about with her program. But we're also doing a better job of educating people who use illicit substances. And we're also doing a better education on teaching them how to more safely consume if they're going to continue to consume. And then we're also having bigger success in folks deciding that they want to take positive changes over their health care. And that's really important, and that comes through empowerment, through walking with people through this journey, and we'll learn more about that this evening, what that looks like. But we still have a lot of work to do in Gaston County. Up next, I want to introduce you to Kevin Oliver, who is the CEO and founder of Phoenix Counseling. He founded Phoenix in 2003, and he is, like I said, serves as the Chief Executive Officer. Phoenix provides a lot of services in this community, including behavioral health, crisis, residential, and outpatient services. And they provide it in Gaston, Cleveland, and Lincoln counties. So we're going to ask Kevin to come and speak and tell us more about about adolescents, yes, and the lack of services provided here.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? It's been a long, interesting trip we've had since we've started this little struggle. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about opioids tonight, but with adolescents and teenagers, we're going to group it into two separate cohorts. We're going to have the 12 to 17 and 17 to 24. And looking at that, we're looking at brain development and maturity and just overall situational. Adolescent services, we've been doing adolescent services, primarily myself, also doing group dynamics with teenagers for the past 15 years, and it's changed over time. And for a little bit of a knowledge base, we typically see what the substance we see being used by the adults, and it starts creeping into the adult world, such as opiates have been for the past, 20 years here. We can see about a 7-year lag between how, your older adults will start moving, that drug use will start merging down to the younger groups. So with adolescent services, there's a lot of need. We're just going to say that out loud regarding opioid especially opioid treatment. We've had several over the past several years that have high substance use that have needed residential treatment, detoxification services that we provide for adults, but we don't do for adolescents. And there's actually no treatment center in North Carolina, actually in the region. The only two that I know of are in Pennsylvania and Florida that we send adolescents to that are at high risk for overdosing. So those are the two areas. Also long-term residential, there's only one program within North Carolina, and that's on the East Coast, Port Services, and we've utilized them a lot. But most of the time we're dealing with kids in the group homes, back at the houses, and with Department of Juvenile Justice. So there's a true need for adolescent services. Again, that 12 to 17 age group is our biggest area. The 18 to 24, what happens with that? Obviously, the brain is still developing. And when someone starts using a substance from vaping, tobacco products to marijuana to alcohol and onwards, as the brain is still developing those pathways in our brain, as we start to look at that, and development takes on until we're adults, 23 to 25, the biggest issue comes down to is the younger a person starts experimenting, and the more they're using, the more problems they have long term, such as someone starts using tobacco at the age of 12. The difficulty in trying to quit at the age of 45 is significant. And it can be done, but there needs to be a lot of steps in place for that. And that's sort of what we're dealing with early onset of use. So with overall adolescent services, and again, that 12 to 17, there's a huge gap in the community, especially if their diagnosis was with opioid use disorder. The use of opioid replacement drugs, very hard to do. Not many prescribers are willing to do that at such a young age, which you can sort of take on. It's a high liability, giving a 17-year-old, especially like a methadone at McLeod Center or something like that. I think you guys have an age limit at 18. Yeah, and that's normal. That's pretty standard throughout the state. So that's been the biggest problems we've had over the years. The other aspect is when someone has a pretty significant substance use disorder, typically they're involved in the legal system, and legal services take over compared to treatment services. So most of the time that we're dealing with these individuals, they're already well into the court system, and that usually transcends when they turn 18 and forward. And that's the tough part. So they're already behind the 8 ball, and it continues to stack up against them as they move forward. Take into account if there's family involvement or family substance use, that's a strong genetic precursor for them having more problems. Substance use in the family, substance use within the household, ongoing struggles with schools, and then the court system. So I think that's been the biggest thing. So overall, what we're trying to do at the state level is trying to develop more adolescent services, that 12 to 17, working with state regarding developing longer term programs, seeing if we can get prescribers to utilize Suboxone and those kinds of services for that age group. They have to be specifically trained for that. So that's sort of what we're pushing as Phoenix at the state level. I think I rushed through that, but anything else you want me to cover? Really? Well, excellent. Any questions regarding adolescence?
What about the state? You talked about 12 to 17.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if the recovery is going to take a lengthy period of time?
Hopefully recovery is lifetime, right? Yeah, so that's always been the biggest thing is, and I think all of us can sort of say, recovery is lifelong. That's exactly what it is. You don't have a start and an end date. It starts, and hopefully, as we say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. With adolescents, trying to get them to reaching that stage is real hard to do. But yeah, trying to there's a break. We can usually keep them going past 18 to maybe 21 in services, but we sort of hand them off to that next level of care. So there is a disconnect, significant disconnect as a person grows up. Now, 12-step programs, obviously that's a little bit more helpful, but still there's a lot of steps we put in place to make sure they're in a safe environment for adolescents, kids. So, any other questions? And I will tell you, as a therapist, and working with adolescents over the years. The most exciting groups I've ever done is with adolescents. They're the most honest, and sometimes too honest, but they're great to work with. So that's the other piece that I truly enjoy working with that age group is, as we go through it, they try you on every way, but as long as you can reach them, they will work hard for you. So that's the best part I've seen. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kevin. Definitely, I've heard my whole life, the youth is our future, right? And I definitely believe in that. We have some programs in Gaston County that are amazing, that are addressing things from a youth perspective. One of those is, give a shout out to Abby Newton in the back from Public Health. At Public Health, there is a group of youth that meet on a regular basis. I think it's the Teen Advisory Committee or something of that nature. And they actually, in the past year, put out an amazing video talking about how to address overdose and some substance use things. And that was really great. And if you get an opportunity to go on Public Health's website and take a look at that, I think you would be super impressed. It's really amazing. And so there are pockets, but we as a community need to come together and figure out how do we address these things, like in our youth groups, right? In other youth organizations, in sports clubs for youth. Are we talking about substance use? Are we creating safe space where youth can actually have those conversations beyond, sitting in with a clinician, which is great and wonderful, but sometimes clinicians aren't seen as safe space. So how do we begin to network as community to create these safe spaces for our youth to have open and honest conversations, and even perhaps youth mentoring programs where we have youth who are in recovery from substance use, who are then able to mentor those youth who are currently walking that road. And how do we connect those folks? So some ideas around maybe addressing some additional gaps beyond the traditional brick and mortar. All right, up next we have, there we go, Tabitha Jones. Now I have to brag on Tabitha. She said she's going to kill me for putting her on this panel, but she is amazing. So Tabitha works for Olive Branch Ministry as a North Carolina certified peer support specialist. And we have the honor and privilege of having her serve at Gaston County DHHS and Child and Family Welfare. She works directly with families who have either lost their children due to substance use in the home or are at risk of losing their children, and working towards family reunification for health and wellness of the parents and the family members involved in substance use and overall family well-being. And I can't brag on Tabitha enough and what an amazing part of our team that she is. And I have to also say thank you to the Gaston Opioid Settlement Committee for having faith in the program that they sponsor, because it's the first one of its kind in the state. And so we have set a high marker for other counties to follow when it comes to that. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Tab.
Hello, how are you? I'm very nervous, so I'm not well at speaking in front of people, so I'm just going to read what I wrote today. I'm a peer support. I work with women that have children in foster care. We support parents, primary mothers who already lost their children due to opioid use. These mothers are often deeply motivated to reunify, but they face unique and overwhelming barriers once child welfare becomes involved. Today, I want to focus on how fear, stigma, and lack of child care and the shortage of family-centered treatment programs create gaps that actually increase instability and make reunification harder, not easier. For parents who already have children in foster care, recovery no longer happens in a vacuum. Every decision they make is now under scrutiny. Many are now navigating court requirements, treatment mandates, visitation schedules, housing instability, and trauma, often all at the same time. Instead of recovering and being supported, It can feel like a test they're afraid to fail. This pressure alone can interfere with engagement even when motivation is high. These parents face barriers that are specific to parenting within the foster care system. First, there is fear of DSS involvement, not fear that already happened, but fear of further consequences, extended timelines, termination of parental rights, and missed reunification opportunities if they make one mistake or ask for help at the wrong time. Second, childcare is a major barrier if they have other children that were not taken from the home. Mothers often required to attend treatment, parenting classes, therapy, and visits, but rarely are provided childcare for younger children, and transportation is also an issue. Third, stigma plays a huge role. Mothers with opioid use disorder are often viewed through a moral lens than a medical or trauma-informed one. They are labeled as non-compliant instead of overwhelmed, unmotivated, and instead of supported. And finally, there are very few family-centered treatment programs available once children are already in foster care. Most programs treat the individual and not the family system that the child welfare system is trying to stabilize. These gaps have real consequences when parents miss opportunities because transportation or childcare issues. It can be documented as non-compliant. When relapse happens, as it often does in early recovery, it can be treated as a failure. Without family-centered treatment, mothers are asked to recover separately from their roles as parents, even though reunification is the goal. This disconnect increases the likelihood of prolonged foster care stays, disrupted visitation, in some cases terminations of parental rights, not because the mother didn't care, but because the system did not meet her where she was. As a peer support specialist, I see what parents engage and stay engaged. They respond to non-punitive support, clear expectations, and systems that recognize recovery as a process, not a straight line. Family-centered approach matters even when children are already in foster care. This includes treatment that coordinates with child welfare, flexibility around scheduling visits, trauma-informed responses to relapse, and practical supports that like transportation and childcare. Peers play a critical role here. We help the parents navigate the system, reduce fear, and reframe setbacks and stay connected to hope. When parents feel supported instead of judged, engagement improves, and so does reunification outcomes. If we want stability for children in foster care, we must support the mothers in a realistic and humane way. Addressing fear, reducing stigma, and expanding family-centered treatment options, and integrating peer support are not extras, they're essential. We close the gaps. We don't just support recovery. We support families, permanency, and long-term child well-being. I will say this, I've had the opportunity to be able to walk along four parents that have reunified within last year, and have one that's getting ready to reunify in February. And it's been a fantastic and hard journey. But with a lot of hard work, they have been able to have their children back. And then once that happens, I've made some referrals to, they're called Success Coach. And that really gives them therapy with the child and the mother, and it helps support them once they get their child back, because in most cases, the children have been gone 1 to 2 years. So, it's new for both the child and the parents getting the children back. But I'm under 5 minutes, so I'm really happy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tab. I love when I get calls from Tabitha, and she says, I got another one. I got another one. And that means that we have somebody who's going to rehab in another city, and we got to figure out how to get them there. But we do, don't we? And that's so cool, because it's another parent and another family that has a chance at reunification. So thank you. Up next, we have Anna Coey, licensed clinical social worker, and she is the behavioral health MAT program manager for Contegra. And Contegra is our federally qualified health clinic here in Gaston County. And they are an amazing organization. They're actually in, I don't know how many, you have 20 offices or so? 19 counties. Yeah, it's a large, has a large spread, which is great because many of our folks that experience substance use disorder or unhoused or mental health issues are often transient. They move around quite a bit. And so that's good that Contegra can keep them within that network of care and keep that continuum of care going consistently. One of the things I love about Contegra is that they take a holistic approach to healthcare. So they address not only the physical, what we see on the outside, but they also address what's going on in here. And that to me is amazing because I've worked with other FQHCs that did not have the same vision and the same desire to address people honoring their autonomy and their humanity while giving them respect and providing health care at the same time. So with that, I'll bring up Anna.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate you. Good evening, everyone. Like Michelle said, my name is Anna Coey. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I oversee our medication for opioid use disorder programming at Contegra Health. Does everyone know, love to get just to gauge if you're comfortable raising your hand, does everyone know what medication for opioid use disorder is? Does everyone know that there is treatment for opioid use disorder, that there is a medication, there are medications available? Good. Thank you for the hand. I appreciate that. Thank you. Substance use, it's a heavy topic, so I'm going to start by something lighter. I typically play trivia on Thursdays. I go to the local brewery and I say, let's play trivia. So we're going to play trivia. I've got 2 questions. Starbucks gift cards are on the line here, right? I'll be honest, it wasn't that long ago that I was in college. I wasn't at the Abbey. I love that you say the Abbey, not Belmont Abbey, it's the Abbey. And I convinced myself that I could run off venti caramel macchiatos for the entirety of my college career. Here I am standing in front of students. So to say it worked, maybe. But if you win a trivia card tonight, consider this your ticket to powering through your next morning class or maybe your next meeting. I love that we have a balanced room tonight. So let's get started. First question. And Michelle, maybe you can be my eyes here. I'm going to read. If someone could be my eyes, we're just going to do hands. So first one to raise their hand, get the right answer. Yeah. Stink bug. That's okay. Okay, first question. What percentage of overdoses involve more than one substance? A, 10%, B, 25%, C, 50%, D, over 70%. D? Winner. And I would love to hear your Starbucks order.
Oh, girl, it changes every time. Oh, I like the mango dragon fruit lemonade.
Okay, love that. That's like my PM drink. That's not my morning drink, but that's yeah. I love that. Okay. Second question. What percentage of people with substance use disorder receive any form of treatment in a given year? A, 5%, B, 10%, C, 25%, D, 40%. I saw back first. Did you see that one too? Say it again. B as in boy? Winner. Starbucks order.
I have to like say into the mic. I like the sugar cookie latte, the seasonal.
I love that. I love a good sugar rush. I love that. Okay. Thanks for participating. Some key points from those trivia, right? Polysubstance use, it's the new norm. It's no longer the exception. Our treatment gap in our communities, it remains one of the biggest challenges in our field. Thanks for playing along. I appreciate your participation. On Monday, I'm celebrating my daughter's very first birthday. Yep, brings a little tear to my eye. While I know I still have some time before the true parenting kicks in, the eye rolls, the curfews, the you don't understand me, mama, it terrifies me to teach and raise a child in the communities that we are living in today. One day, I'll be responsible for helping her navigate the very concerns that our communities are facing right now. Luckily, she's still not walking. I have a little time before I sit her down and say, let's talk about drugs. For now, my biggest challenge is keeping her from eating our dog's food. So I'm holding on to that while I have it. So tonight, I want to focus our time together on one central idea: the increasing diagnostic complexity of the people that are walking through our doors. It sounds very, very clinical, but what this really means is people are showing up with more layered, intertwined, and more severe needs than they ever have before. The systems that were built to support individuals, healthcare, behavioral health, social services, they were not originally built for the level of complexity that we are seeing today. Polysubstance use is the new normal. A decade ago, most treatment programs were designed around a single primary substance. Today, that's rarely the case. I don't know the last time I had someone walk in and say, I'm using only opioids, I'm using only alcohol. People are using multiple substances at the same time, often in unpredictable combinations: fentanyl with methamphetamines, alcohol with benzos, substances that are contaminated, mislabeled, or entirely synthetic, man-made. This matters because polysubstance use, it makes withdrawal more dangerous, it complicates treatment planning, it increases overdose risk when someone believes they may be using less. For us providers, this means traditional pathways, they don't work the way that they used to. We must constantly adjust, reassess, educate, as we're doing tonight, because the landscape, it's shifting month to month. Tri-diagnosis, it's when mental health, substance use, and physical health, they all collide. Many of our patients aren't just managing a substance use disorder, they're also living with a mental health condition, a chronic physical health condition simultaneously. This tri-diagnosis, it is the new normal, it's no longer the exception. So I want you to imagine trying to treat depression in someone who's also managing diabetes and using substances to cope with their past trauma, or stabilizing their opioid use disorder when untreated bipolar disorder is driving behavior, or helping someone manage their heart disease when homelessness makes storing their medications impossible. Tri-diagnosis requires behavioral health care, medical care, care coordination, social support, and often legal and/or housing assistance. But most of our systems are siloed. People must navigate multiple agencies, multiple appointments, multiple wait lists. When someone's already overwhelmed, this fragmentation, it becomes a barrier to their survival. There's been a rise of complex social and environmental stressors in our community. Diagnostic complexity, it's not just biological, it's about the environments that we're living in. It's the world that people are living in. We're seeing housing instability, food insecurity, transportation barriers, family trauma, lack of childcare, limited access to consistent primary care. These factors, they don't just make life harder, they make recovery harder. They make treatment adherence harder, and they make finding hope harder. If someone is choosing between paying rent and paying for medication, the treatment plan on paper, it doesn't matter. If someone is sleeping in a car storing insulin or psychiatric medications, it becomes impossible. Earlier this week, we honored the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was reminded of his words. It's all right to tell a man to lift himself up by his bootstraps, but it's cruel to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself up by his own bootstraps. When someone's basic needs are not met, a missed appointment, it's not non-compliance. It's a predictable outcome of circumstances that no one can navigate alone. So why does integrated community-based care matter? At Contegra Health, we've learned that you cannot treat substance use in isolation. You cannot treat mental health in isolation, and you cannot treat chronic disease in isolation. People need integrated care models, places where medical, behavioral health, social, all of their needs are addressed together and ideally under one roof. Truly integrated care is still out of the reach for many of our communities. It really requires significant resources, highly trained staff, flexible funding, and systems that communicate with one another. When these pieces aren't in place, the people that have the most complex needs, they feel it the most. So what does this mean for our students and for our community members? For the students here, many of you are preparing for careers in nursing. This is the landscape that you're stepping into. It is challenging every single day, but it is full of opportunity. You will be the generation that helps redesign how care is delivered. You will be the ones who push for integrated models, trauma-informed approaches, and community-based solutions. You will be the ones who help shift the system from being reactive to proactive. For community partners and residents, your involvement matters, your advocacy, it matters. Your willingness to collaborate, it matters. No single organization, not Contegra, not a hospital, not a school, can solve this alone. So I'll close with this. Providing care has become more challenging because people's lives have become more complex. Complexity does not mean impossibility, though. It means we must evolve, we must adapt. It means we must collaborate, it means we must build systems that reflect the realities that people are living in today, not 20 years ago. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being a part of a community that cares enough to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I've had the privilege of and working with Contegra for a number of years now, and I was so happy to be able to have that partnership, and am happy to have that partnership because they get it. And the changes that I have seen just in programming and requirements of providers and education of staff around harm reduction has been amazing. And for that, I am very, very thankful. It's my time to speak, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let some folks speak for me.
Do is take get up in the morning. First thing I have to do is take my shot. Then I take a shower, get ready for work, usually around 1 o'clock. Have to take another shot to get me through work because I can't take it to work. Go to work, get home, have to take another shot, shower, go to bed. So my day revolves around that.
Normal day. It depends on whether I have something or not. If I have something, then pretty much just sitting around all day. If I don't, then going and getting it, chasing it, trying to figure out how to get it, trying to figure out how I'm going to eat most of the time. Those two things take up a lot of time.
Well, now I wake up and the first thing I do is I start to just kind of prepare myself for the day. I am homeless, so I live in a tent in the woods. So we have a little, I guess you could call it a community out there. So my normal day is just me getting up and, kind of cleaning up from the night before, straightening up my things and seeing what got stolen over the night. And basically just, determining where I'm going to go to eat, where my food's going to come from. Because they have different, donation places, different days and times and whatnot. So really, the days are pretty much the same. They just start to run together. You just, instead of going to this spot, you go to that spot. So you just swap days for days, and then about middle ways towards the end of the day is usually when my younger siblings are usually calling me for help or something. You know, we were all on dope, you know, for a long time. I just recently finished rehab, so now I'm back out there with all the same people, which is probably not healthy for me, but I wasn't gonna leave my brother and my sisters. So, but now that's basically just a normal day for me. It was just helping out my brother and my sisters, and I mean, I try to do the best I can. Before, my days was just chasing high. And that's pretty much what my days were like. Trying to not, you know, think about things and, you know, sit in, you know, some dark depression, like some depressed state where it just drives me crazy and makes me do stupid things and act stupidly. So, but I mean, I find, you know, I kind of inspired my brother and my sisters, I think, a little bit, because they didn't think that I would do it. They didn't think that I would complete it, and I did. So, you know, I think now I'm 44 days off fentanyl. So, you know, I'm doing pretty good, I think.
Somewhere where you can actually go where you don't have to switch one thing for another. Somewhere where you can detox and they actually help you, like actually give you like nausea medicine and fluids and like somebody there for you, because detox centers ain't like that. It's more like a jail.
I would say that I think just offering people a way out, you know, a way off the street, because the street, you know, they say that not everybody's for the street, but the street's for everybody, you know. I mean, it really does do a number on you in a lot of different ways, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, the whole nine. It really does. It takes a toll on a person. I think housing would probably change a lot. If there was one thing I wish that Gastonia had, was just some kind of, you know, I guess it would potentially be a rehab, I guess, because, you know, they'd obviously not let you use dope while you were there, you know. But just like some housing assistance, you know, for people, because a lot of people really turn to dope once they become homeless. Because, I mean, I gotta say, like, the pain of realizing that you're homeless and, you know, feeling, because there's a sense of, you know, of like abandonment, you know, that comes with being homeless. You feel like you've been abandoned, you know.
That all homeless people aren't bad. And they shouldn't be treated bad.
It's different now. What I mean, I've been injecting heroin and narcotics for over 53 years. We were hippies, we were young. I don't know about love and stuff and all this, but we did drugs for fun. People don't do drugs for fun no more. They do drugs to run from their pain, their depression, the fact that, let's say you got a good job bringing home $450 a week, then you know that after you pay your rent, you want no power, but you'll have $10, you'll be able to eat one time for that week. So, you know, the rent's $1,500 a week in the hood now. And ain't nobody set up for failure for people that not as fortunate as some other people, let's say that. And it's easy enough to say, well, if they really wanted to quit, they would. Well, I carried that around a long time too. So, you know, I do it because I want to, but there's a lot of other reasons why people do the things they do. And it ain't from being happy no more. It used to be fun. It ain't fun. That's about all I got on that.
I would tell them that probably every family in America has been affected by drug addiction, and I mean, I know plenty of people that have. And instead of being mad and hateful and upset at your family, try to be helpful. Give them the help they need. Talk to them. If they do come out and talk to you about their problems, listen. Don't say, "Oh, well, you should just quit," because it's not that simple. You can't just quit. It's impossible to just quit without help. And even after you quit, the battle still just begins, because then you still got the mental part of it that's just as hard as the physical addiction. And just make sure you let everybody know that you're there for them and you'll do whatever you can to help them. And you can't be enabler. You can't be an enabler, but you can help, and you can listen, and you can be there. I can't even talk to my family because they're not understanding. So I would highly recommend people just listen to their family and don't judge them, and don't be too harsh on them. Just be there for them.
Those are people I know. Those are people I love. Those are people who have asked that I carry their voice to this space. Those are people that receive services in this county. Those are people that deserve respect and love and safe spaces. And the people on this panel tonight provide that for these individuals and for so many more. But I wanted you to hear from them. And now I want you to hear from Leslie Lee, the Executive Director of Gaston Together. Gaston Together has provided services for 25 years. Oh, 28 years, I'm out of date. That has centered around the health of this community. And I'm gonna let Leslie come forward because I'm not sure I can say anything else right now.
So I'm gonna come out from behind the very tall podium, also so I can see the slides. So we are an organization whose main focus is to address opportunities and challenges in our community. And there is no greater challenge right now and also opportunity than what we're addressing here tonight. About 2 years ago, we created this program, Just Call, You Might Save Their Life. And we did it so that we could normalize the conversation around accessing resources, mental health resources, resources for opioid situations, and also making our community more comfortable with how they can approach this. Our goal really is, if you have Band-Aids, you have naloxone. We want people to get that comfortable with what is happening. And our community really has embraced this, and they are learning, because we're not only meeting people where they are as they're going through a substance use disorder journey, but we're also meeting people where they are as they're learning about this and how they need to go about helping people. So I'm not going to give you our whole presentation tonight. I'm going to give you an overview of the how and the why, and how you can get in touch with us so that we can supply this for you. So, Just Call, You Might Save Their Life. It talks about who to call in an emergency, a mental health crisis, substance use disorder. What happens when you call 911? We discovered that a lot of people don't know how to call for help. We originally designed this program for older teens and early college students, and discovered that most adults don't know how to call 911. They don't know the steps for how to help someone and where to go. how to recognize an opioid overdose and the symptoms, what is naloxone, and how do you effectively use naloxone, how to not be afraid of using it, what substance use disorder is, opioids effects, the Good Samaritan law. North Carolina has a wonderful law that protects people when they help someone. A lot of people don't understand how that law works. And safe storage and disposal of medications. This is another really large area. Next slide. We talk about prescription versus illegal opioids and helping people to identify where it is safe to access medications and where it isn't safe to access medications. What is naloxone? A lot of people don't understand what naloxone is, how to use it, that naloxone is the generic name for Narcan, which is a name brand. Does anybody know when naloxone was actually invented? What year? 1961. It was invented to counteract constipation from opioids. It was not invented for the purpose it's used for now. It took 10 years after it was invented for it to actually go through the FDA process, and another 30 years for it to get to how we're using it now. It's been around a long time. We talk about recognizing an opioid overdose, all the different steps, so we go through that, teaching you how to use it. Next slide. How to administer naloxone, Narcan. Since 2024, we have trained actually almost 1,000 people. This slide is a little bit out of date, on how to use naloxone, identify an opioid overdose, and call 911. We've had 21 organizations participate in this. Over 325 people have learned how to use doTERRA pouches and how to safely store their medications. We've presented to schools, middle schools and high schools, businesses, local governments, caseworkers, medical personnel, and other groups. These are just some of the people that we have given our presentation to. You'll notice some of them we have ×3, some are now ×4. We've come back time and time again to make sure that their people have this necessary training. We are very privileged to have the support of these agencies to help us do this. And if you're interested in having this presentation, this is how you get in touch with us. So we would really like to make sure that everyone in our community has access to this, knows how to use it safely. Our hope is it's like CPR. You always want to learn it, and you hope you never have to use it, but when you do, you're ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you are interested, we have naloxone, Narcan ready for you this evening. We brought nasal doses, I think about 36 kits. So if you're interested in that, we'll have that available at the back of the room after this is over. So we've heard a lot tonight. We've heard statistics on things. Some things are getting better, some things we need to work on. But any positive change is what we say in harm reduction. And so I'm hopeful that there is positive change that continues to happen in Gaston County. We heard about the gap with adolescent services and the fact that we need to do more for our youth. We need to help raise them upright and provide opportunities for them to ask questions and to receive services and to have honest conversations. And we are having hope that that is coming to Gaston County, right? We heard about what's happening with families and reunification and opportunities for parents to learn life skills at a pace that suits them, hopefully. Sometimes set by the court, but also we allow for self-growth, and it doesn't have to be a perfect program. You just have to work it, right? And as you do that, again, positive change begins to happen, and barriers are lessened, and families are reunited, which is what the ultimate goal is. We heard about tri-diagnosis, and for many of you that may be a new term. There's a lot to be said for the chronic diseases that individuals that are experiencing substance use disorder, mental health challenges, and being unhoused or developing. And one of the things that we haven't addressed this evening, but that we are seeing more and more evidence of, and there's research studies around now, is traumatic brain injuries, TBI, from the sheer number of overdoses that people have and recover from. Because every time you overdose, your brain is starved of oxygen. And so it's a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here. And some of our people we've worked with for now 14 years. And in that time, we have seen cognitive decline. And we believe that's just really from the number of overdoses that some people have experienced. And so that's one of those tri-diagnoses that we are hoping that research will help us support and figure out how do we address those things as well. But I have hope because clinics are expanding their medical models and they're taking medicine into the streets and primary care into the streets and MOUD into the streets. And that is amazing. And if you ever get the opportunity to do street outreach, I hope you will take that. It will change your life. And we heard from voices living the experience. Literally, some of those people were sitting across the desk from me yesterday recording this audio because I wanted you to have experiences in real time. And I think their stories speak for themselves. And we've heard about naloxone. And we heard at the beginning of what an amazing job that this naloxone saturation, Narcan saturation is doing in the community. And we are not only seeing the saturation in the community of people who use substances, but also in businesses who are keeping it on site and putting it in their safety boxes. In fact, I had someone tonight who said, can I get some from you before I leave so I can put it in my house of faith next to the AED so we'll have it. And we're expanding the community awareness of the need for it and the fact that everybody should carry naloxone. I carry it on my backpack. I have it in my suitcases. TSA looks at me funny when I fly because I usually fly with about 30 doses because you never know. Every Uber I get into gets naloxone if they want it. That's that important, and it starts a conversation. And you have an opportunity here tonight. We'll get to questions in just a minute. But you have an opportunity here tonight. We're here on this campus. It's a faith-based campus. So I'm not going to preach, but I can. But what I'm going to say is this. You are witnesses to the miracles that are happening in Gaston County, whether you believe it or not. And you have the opportunity to sit on the information you've learned tonight or to spread that word to your classmates that aren't here, to your friends, to your family, to your Uber driver, and talk about the good work that's happening here, where we need help from people like you, upcoming healthcare providers, community members, people maybe with lived experience or family members with lived experience. But you have the ability to spread this word wherever you go about the need to address substance use, mental health, the unhoused crisis that we're having here. And you also have the opportunity to be part of the solution. And for that, I thank you, because I know that you're going to go and you're going to tell somebody what you learned tonight. And now we're going to provide a brief opportunity if anyone has questions. I'm going to step back, and then if anybody has questions, just raise your hand of any of the panelists, or if you have a comment that you want to make about tonight's event, please just let me know. I'm not going to ask your Starbucks order, I promise.
Hi, this might be a good question for Leslie, but it could be open to anyone. So I used to live in the Triangle area, and they had a lot of places where you could easily get naloxone, no questions asked. You just go in, they'd give you a brown paper bag, and at Chapel Hill you could actually go every single day and pick up a new bag. And when I moved here, I started looking into like where can I get naloxone, like where can I like recommend friends if they'd like to carry it, because I think that's really important. And I noticed first of all, I found it a little challenging at first to like figure out where you get it. And so it just kind of made me think like, how do we expand that resource so that there's multiple centers easily accessible in our community where people can like pick up naloxone, receive training, just so like we can saturate the community. What would need to go into doing something like that? Follow-up question. Has there been any thought, this is very niche, but has there been any thought in like implementing like public naloxone distribution and like initiating the conversation classes as well as distribution at like local library centers? Because I know like in my own experience that a lot of people who are homeless or who are looking for work like use the computers there and they're open to anyone. Has there been any thought into doing something like that? Yes. Thank you.
There will be some vending machines coming. The GEMS is getting some, so in the higher overdose rates, so there'll be big vending machines. And then also, like Leslie mentioned, some of the paper ones, so people can just come and get. So once we have that, we'll share that with your staff.
I just have to say, Olive Branch, and I didn't talk about Olive Branch because this isn't about Olive Branch tonight, but Olive Branch is a harm reduction agency. We've been serving Gaston County since I started working at Claremont 2013, 2014. In the evenings after I got off work, we were doing naloxone distribution. So naloxone's been in the county for a long time, and our agency gives out over 10,000 doses a year alone, just for people who come to our syringe services program. And I'm happy to connect with you on that if you're interested on that. Because I think that's really, really important. What Leslie does, and having picked up the mantle of naloxone distribution, really taking charge has been amazing. And the vending machines are going to be great as well. And there's a lot of places that are carrying those. But we also need to get it in the hands of everyday folks, right? And so whatever we can do, anybody in the room can do to help make that happen, then we're happy to meet with you to help make that happen. So thank you for that question. Other questions? Comments? I'm coming. I'm getting my steps in.
Two significant points made. One was Kevin Oliver talking about the youth and how much they need to be concentrated on, and Tabitha talking about the foster families uniting with their family. I think they're wonderful things. I'm wondering how much growth are we shining on the light for the funding you need to grow that kind of?
We're just trying to keep our current funding available, so I'm just going to be honest with you. As we fight every letter that comes out from SAMHSA, that's a tough part because it's limited dollars out there, and that's been our biggest struggle, such as programs where ladies can still have their kids while in treatment. Very limited funding. We've put in for a couple grants for that because it's not it's expensive on the front end, but on the back end it has so much more worth. So that thinking outside the box is there. It's just things, I hate to say it, take priority at the state level. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, adolescent residential services was taken out of, as not just as a therapist, but also as an administrator, was taken out of services 25 years ago. So it was very limited, and treatment was very, how would we say this? It's easier to treat kids with, to diagnose them as having a conduct disorder than with substance use disorder. And that's typically where the money follows. And that's what historically I've worked with. So that's been the biggest problem. So shining a light on our side and doing that treatment is critical. There is still such a strong population of those kids out there because they're there. We know it really well.
I have a joke about this, but I've always said it's like kissing a girl in the dark. You know what nobody else does.
Okay.
What scares the hell out of me is that this money needs to be focused on these issues, and I don't see it. I see when I leave here tonight, I'm not going to read about it much. You'll be the publication.
I hate to say it, the squeaky wheel gets the grease sometimes. More of it's currently on crisis services, which we also provide. Situations such that happened on the Tran in Charlotte, those kinds of things take priority. Everything else, yes, I've been screaming at this. I've been screaming at the wind for 20 plus years on this. It ebbs and flows, but yeah, and I've worked with the division at so many different levels.
I see it. I have a 50-year-old friend right now.
Uh-huh.
He's a recovering alcoholic,
Yep.
diabetic, and he's ready to lose his eyesight.
Know those guys too.
And you start talking about these events, everybody here probably has a story like that.
Well, it's very hard, especially for adolescents. The difference between experimentation of substance, and parents going, I did that when I was a kid. I smoked weed when I was a kid. They're just going through a phase and minimizing the circumstance. And these kids are just going out to the streets and taking as much pills as they want. Yeah, that's the struggle bus. Because we know 15 plus is typically, if the genetics is involved, there's a stronger aspect that their use will skyrocket by 20. And that's usually when they're in the court systems. Sorry.
All right. Do we have any other audience questions? If not, I have one final question for our panelists. All right. So panelists, I'm just going to pass the mic down. We've talked about services provided. We've talked about gaps in services. We've talked about what the environment is. But what I want to know, and we want to leave here on a positive note, what do you have hope for this community in the services that you're providing or in addressing substance use disorder?
was hoping I was going to go last. What do I have hope for? Education. Things like tonight, seeing even students, a place where I sat again not long ago. The education that I received even 5 to 7 years ago was different than it is tonight, just in regards to what substances are plaguing our communities, right? So I have hope that education is still there, right? People are still willing to have the conversations. There's still professors willing to make their students come to forums like tonight, right? Requirement, love that. I thought everyone showed up because they wanted to. I'm like, it couldn't be that, right? But education, that has to be the hope, right? Is that we're continuing to educate and we're continuing to have the conversations around facts and real data. It's important.
My hope is that our community, or any community, loses its fear of how they approach this and start to approach it from a lens of love and understanding. Substance use disorder is not something that someone chooses, but we need to choose how we respond to it. And I hope that we can get to a place where we can normalize that conversation each and every day. It just becomes more and more normal for us to talk about it.
I agree with the education piece. We need to educate not just our communities, but the families as well about substance use disorder. And at the state level too, there needs to be some change, especially in foster care. The expectation of meeting a case plan within a year, that's hard to do when housing is unavailable. You know, if you don't have transportation, that's a huge barrier. You know, how can we get more transportation in our area? And just to look at someone who has substance abuse disorder as a human being and just love them right where they are, you know, just to look at them as a human being because they are a human being, so.
You just stole my thunder. That's exactly it. From 30 years of being in Gaston County, working in addiction, going from those people over there that we don't know who they are. We just need to lock them up, throw them away. They'll get cleaned that way. They have no willpower. They don't know what they're. It's a moral aptitude of that person compared to now where, okay, how can we help this individual? Where can we get them help? How can we get them transportation? Where are the areas? So it's gone from a moral problem to this truly is the disease problem. And I've seen that from all levels, from law enforcement to social services, to court systems. So that's probably the biggest thing I've seen over the past 30 years.
It's hard right now. It's hard. I have a lot of hope in my patients. Sometimes I get a lot of that from them, but I get most of that working in harm reduction. That's where I get most hope in this field. And I have a lot of hope in regard to our civil rights laws. I'll speak a little more on that real quick, but I was an IV heroin user for 9 years. So I've lived it. I've been in jails. I've been in prison. And that record follows me everywhere. And it's still hard to get housing, right? I have all these degrees, right? But when they see a felon, that's all that they need to see. And the amount of discrimination that I experienced, I still experience to this day, for those that don't know me and just see my record. But the amount of amount of discrimination I experienced in healthcare would shock a lot of people. I was treated horribly. My patients were treated horribly. And I think that is what I'd like for y'all to hear tonight, is that you can change that. You can see people for who they are. You can not walk into things with bias and stigma, because I truly believe that stigma is what is killing people. and we can do something about that. So thank you all for coming.
My hopes. In a perfect world, I'd hope we don't have to do this anymore. I hope I'd have to go find a job somewhere else. But there's reality, right? So my hope is that the justice system, that the medical system, that the treatment system, that the community at large could learn to see and respect humanity before disease. That we all make providing safe space and being safe space for others, regardless, that we make that not just a habit, but we make it the norm. And finally, I hope that you've learned something, that you've been impacted, that you remember this 3 or 4 years down the road when you're further along in your education career, or you're beginning your employment, when you're out in community, that you think back to this night and you think, I remember when, and man, doesn't it look better now? That's my hope. Thank you so much for being here this evening. I appreciate each and every one of you. And if you would like naloxone, Narcan, it's available at the back, and we'll make sure that you get a dose or get a kit with 2 doses before you leave. And I'm going to turn it over to Whitney.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Ruth Ginsburg pointed out that real change takes time. So this is an embryonic movement to all of you to reach out. We have this videotaped for you to look at it, review it, and make some changes that will direct your life. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have